Hello, merhaba. This is the last lesson of this semester and it's a nice one. You will learn the existential in Turkish, meaning you'll be able to say sentences with there is or there is not. You'll be able to say if you have something, if you don't have something, because this is the way we say it, because Turkish doesn't have a specific verb to have. But instead you will learn how to say that in this way. We will also start talking about measurements and units in Turkish and how to ask about specific items while shopping. So this week we're going to make shopping lists and do shopping. You'll learn how to do shopping on your own, specifically food. So you will be able to say things like there is a book on the table, I have a question, there's no talking here, and a kilo of tomatoes, right? So let's start with saying there is a book on the table. Masada bir kitap var. In the end, I said var, which means existing. The opposite is not existing and it is yok. Let's say that. Masada bir kitap yok. There's not a book on the table. So you see the noun phrase indicated location with the locative case masada appears in the beginning. The var and yok existential words appear in the end. So this is usually the case, okay? If you are talking about plural items such as kitaplar, books, Varenyok will not change. They're not going to become plural. So you'll say masada kitaplar var, masada kitaplar yok. You see, var and yok doesn't change. They don't. So let's see some more examples. In different kinds of sentences. Sınıfta neler var? What are there in the classroom? Sınıfta sandalyeler var. You see, again, plural and var didn't change. Bugün gazetede ne var? What's in the newspaper today? Bugün gazetede haberler var. There are news in the newspaper today. You can always make yes or no questions. For instance, masada kitap var mı? Is there a book on the table? Evet, masada kitap var. Or hayır, masada kitap yok. Sınıfta araba yok mu? Isn't there a car in the classroom? Hayır, sınıfta araba yok. No, there isn't a car in the classroom. So, important note here, sometimes the location can be missing. For instance, masada, sınıfta, gazetede, this is the location that I've been giving some examples. But they can be missing sometimes because it's clear from the general context. For instance, yarın ders var mı? Is there class tomorrow? Yarın sınav var mı? Is there test tomorrow? So you see, there is no location in these questions because it's understood in context. It's okulda or derste, right? The negative existential is interesting. For instance, burada sigara içmek yok. There's no smoking here. Or like in English you would say, no smoking here. Derste uyumak yok. No sleeping in class. Yemekte konuşmak yok. No talking at dinner. So this is the case for the negative. You don't see similar pattern in the positive var. It's only yok, the prohibitive actions. And I use infinitive verbs for, to indicate disallowed actions here. That's usually the case. All right? Finally, existential is used to express possession in Turkish. As I said before, there's no to have in Turkish. Instead, we use var and yok with possessive phrases. But of course, there's no problem because you already know possessive phrases, right? So it's going to be easy for you today. So you're gonna say, I have a car. Benim bir arabam var. You see benim arabam. And then plus Varenyok. Benim arabam yok. I don't have a car. Okay? Senin bir kardeşin yok. You don't have a sibling. Onun dersi var. He has class. Bizim bir evimiz var. We have a house. Sizin bir kaleminiz yok mu? Don't you have a pen? Onların kaç kardeşi var? How many siblings do they have? In the same pattern, you can talk about your state of mind or specific things such as benim bir fikrim var. I have an idea. Benim bir sorum var. I have a question. And sometimes I ask you sorunuz var mı in class? It's exactly the same way. Do you have questions? Sorunuz var mı? So now you know where it's coming from, right? So you can imagine that this form is very useful when you're shopping. So you can go to the grocery store, you can ask ekmek var mı? Is there bread? Gazete yok mu? Don't you have newspaper? And in some cases, you may use possessive, indicating that this grocery store does it have a bread or newspaper? Ekmeğiniz var mı? Do you have bread? Meaning the grocery store, right? Not the person. Okay, gazeteniz var mı? The same way. So after that, let's say that they have bread. You want to ask how much is the bread. So you already know kaç in case you ask what time is it? Saat kaç? Ders saat kaçta? So it's the same kaç with the dative kaça. Means how much does it cost? Ekmek kaça? How much is bread? Right? So if we are talking about one bread, units, let's talk about measurements and units. So in terms of produce, it's really rare that you ask for one apple in Turkey, like especially in small grocery stores, maybe in big supermarkets, yes. But if you go to the bazaar and ask for an apple, they would probably give it to you instead of selling it. So usually produce is sold by the kilo. And how do you ask how much is a kilo of apple? Bir kilo elma kaça? So bir kilo elma kaça, or elmanın bir kilosu kaça? How much is a kilo of apple? Right? Bir litre su kaça? How much is a liter of water? Right? You can ask that. So you will find a bunch of examples of measurements and shopping for foods and your books and also the worksheet. So study those explanations and examples and do the exercises. I'm sure you're going to feel comfortable afterwards. Finally, there are common expressions with Varenyok. You already know one of them. Ne var ne yok. Ne var ne yok. What's up? What's happening? Right? You heard this in the first couple of weeks of this class, asking someone what they're doing, how are they doing, right? Ne var ne yok. Bir şey var mı? So usually ask this question, is there something? You suspect that there's something wrong, right? Is there something? Bir şey var mı? Is there something wrong? Hayır, bir şey yok. No, there's nothing. Problem yok, sıkıntı yok, which is really common these days, sıkıntı yok, which means no problem. So yeah, this is the way you use var yok in these cases. And finally, sometimes you'll hear people say yok, instead of hayır, right? So it's commonly used instead of saying no, hayır, yok. And but they don't similarly say var for evet, so it's only the case for no, hayır, yok. Probably coming from bir şey var mı yok kind of dialogue. Okay, so that's it. I hope you'll enjoy this lesson. It's a nice way of finishing, wrapping up this semester, and do the best of you can, and I'll see you in class. Görüşürüz.